A flooding crisis is unfolding in many southern Alberta communities tonight. Thousands in Calgary are under mandatory evacuation orders. Parts of Okotoks are underwater. The Army has been called into High River. Most residents in that town have been told to leave. Roads in Bragg Creek are being chewed away by the river. Much more on the emergency and what the weather will bring us next. Ahead. Good evening and welcome to all of our global viewers across Alberta tonight. We begin with our very special broadcast, State of Emergency, Alberta Floods 2013. A disaster of historic proportions is unfolding right across southern Alberta. The flooding and damage is unprecedented. This amazing video from YouTube of a highway in the Crow's Nest Pass area in the Bragg Creek area, a Quonset washing away in raging waters. There's absolute devastation for many communities. Heavy rain causing flooding that has led to mass evacuations in and around Calgary. Rivers are running high, roads are washing out, and many bridges are in danger of collapsing. There have been many dramatic rescues throughout the day, among them a helicopter flying someone here you see right now to safety. This happening in High River. Well, we have reporters in all of the areas under siege tonight. Jill Croteau is in one of the hardest hit regions. That is the town of High River. Our Gord Gillies is in the southwest here in Calgary near the Elbow. And to the west of us is Global's Jamie Dahl in Canmore. And things are getting worse. There are states of emergency and road closures in more than a dozen communities in southern Alberta. We have reports from Bragg Creek, Black Diamond, Turner Valley, and Longview. Gord Gillies is live along the banks of the Elbow River. And Gord, thousands of people who live in several affected communities can't go home tonight.
Well, Linda and Scott, at 5 o'clock, there were 6 communities impacted. We've added to that list. And let me get to the numbers right away so we can tell everybody that the mandatory evacuation now includes Discovery Ridge, of course, to the west of Calgary, Mission, Rideau, Stanley Park, Elbow Park, Roxborough, and then within the last half hour added to that, Cliff Bungalow, Earlton, and Victoria Park. This is ground zero for the calm before the storm, if you will, because they're building a berm again like they did in 2005 right behind me here on Elbow Drive. It's a steady stream of trucks coming in, dumping a load of soil, and then they're building the berm. Right now, that's about 50 loads worth. There are 36 trucks in Calgary being used, and I just talked to some of the officials here who say we'll probably be calling in more trucks, learning about berm building tonight. What they're doing here is laying down some plastic, as you can see on the road, and as that berm moves through, they'll cover it with plastic, cover that, so if the rains do come, and we expect them to come soon, they will, in fact, protect that. They won't fall apart once they get the berm going. Under mandatory evacuation tonight, people who live in Bragg Creek. The damage there is astonishing, and that's where our Doug Vason spent the day.
The Elbow River thunders down on an unsuspecting Bragg Creek. The trading post reduced to rubble in the roiling water. Residents say they had little warning of the devastation to come.
When I came down at 6, there was a wall of water with big trees coming down the river. The hamlet, White Avenue, promptly flooded. We have never seen this, ever, even in the very, very worst times.
Half an hour before it hit.
No warning, man.
No warning, and nobody knocking on their doors, nothing. It just was that quick.
Emergency responders direct traffic away from the danger. A fuel tank for a new gas station is uprooted by the powerful current, and gas leaks into the already murky water. A woman fears her business, a bakery near the town center, will be lost for good.
It's all in my store. I'm flooding right home.
How deep is the water?
It's
up to there.
Scary?
Yeah, very.
Yeah, and it's strong. It's coming down at a good force.
People in Bragg Creek are used to flash floods, and that may be part of the problem. No one thought it would get this bad.
There are a lot of homes right on the river. The wetlands have overflowed the roads. People did not take it seriously and have put themselves in danger.
We're about half a kilometer from the center of Bragg Creek. You can see the water behind me, very fierce, very high as it crosses the road. There are logs all over the place. You have to be careful when you're driving. In fact, we were just informed by Rocky View County that this area is now under mandatory evacuation. We're going to have to leave. You can see these beautiful homes close to the river completely flooded. It's likely this will be a multi-million-dollar flood.
Decided to head ship while I could, and didn't realize it was so deep at the last part of the four-way stop there, and then just caught the current as far as I could.
A chopper rescues stranded residents trapped by the water. Volunteers ride heavy machinery over washed-out roads to help others, but one needs rescuing himself.
He told me his forklift was floating down the river. I had people phoning me crying, thinking that he was gone, you know, because his forklift was there, it was running, and there was no dirt.
The entire town, over 600 people, are evacuated.
I've been out here since the mid-70s, and this is 100 times worse than the 100-year flood.
As of late afternoon, the elbow had risen almost 5 meters and had yet to crest. Doug Vason, Global News.
The damage is unbelievable. The chaos hard to comprehend. And tonight, the rising rivers that are causing such misery have yet to crest. The historic flooding is swamping this city and southern Alberta, and it now appears to have claimed as many as 4 lives. Entire neighborhoods and towns have been swallowed up by the rising waters. Tens of thousands are out of their homes in Calgary alone. So much is underwater, including much of downtown, where the evacuation zone is growing. Good evening and welcome to our viewers across the Global Alberta Network tonight. That news coming in from our CMP in High River late this afternoon.
News that, in fact, there's been a deadly turn to the situation. The city has been devastated there, of course, by the flooding, and 4 people are missing and presumed drowned. 2 lifeless men were seen in the Highwood River earlier today. Their bodies have not been recovered. Our CMP also saying a woman who was swept away with her camper last night still missing. And it's not clear whether a man who was seen falling out of a canoe in the High River area was able to climb back in.
Prime Minister Stephen Harper flying in from Ottawa late this afternoon because of the flooding situation. He will tour the hardest hit areas along with Premier Alison Redford. Redford says Harper has already promised Alberta will have Ottawa's full support for rescue and recovery efforts. Stephen Harper is heading towards the Emergency Operation Centre. He is expected to speak somewhere in the city shortly, and we will bring you that when it's available.
There's the Prime Minister, the Mayor and the Premier getting set to do the tour. Here is where the Mayor works. That's out front of City Hall, McLeod Trail, folks. Yes, that much rain. Misery here. Tim Lee getting this afternoon. The streets completely submerged in water. McLeod Trail and about 12th Avenue Southeast now to see. To this portion of the City Hall we saw already flooding throughout the downtown. Some drivers having no choice but to leave their vehicles behind. And look what's been dragged into the city. All that mess, the trees, the chunks of wood, it's absolutely unbelievable.
So many waterways still having everybody on alert, and here's some footage of the Bow. That remains a threat to many people. It is already overflowing its banks into several Calgary communities. You're being advised to stay clear, stay away from the downtown core. The water is moving fast, lots of debris in there, and the downtown is being totally evacuated. The Elbow is still on the rise as well. We've been talking to Tony Ty, and in his area, it's maintaining its banks at the level that it was at, but it has already caused mass devastation. Many southwest neighborhoods literally swallowed up. Homes and vehicles, parks and businesses flooded, and the danger is far from over.
Tony has been bringing us up to date on the situation in the Rideau Park, Roxborough area. Pick it up now, Tony, on what you're seeing there this afternoon.
Well, I think we're seeing an awful lot more people come down here since the rain stopped. The sun is actually out. If you can say that boosts your spirits in this kind of a situation, I guess we'll give it to you. But nothing has really changed in terms of water levels. Our fire hydrant over there is still at the exact same level it's been for all afternoon. So the levels have stabilized, but that's all we can say. They certainly haven't gone down at all, and people have been coming down all day, just sharing their stories with us about how they were evacuated, when it all happened. We had an interesting conversation with someone who said that the actual rivers didn't start flowing through this area until well after 3 o'clock in the morning, and in fact the water came in from both sides of where we're standing, east and west, which is unlike 2005 when they only flooded the kind of east end of Roxborough and not so much the Rideau Park area. You're looking down 4th Street right now, all those cars in the street. The evacuation notice was given in plenty of time, but some people just didn't take it seriously enough, and when the water started rising, they didn't have time to move their cars. So that's what we're being told. So at this particular time, we're seeing a lot more people, like dozens, coming down here to take a look for themselves and get a good sense of this once-in-a-lifetime experience that is happening to their neighborhoods.
Good evening. We continue our coverage tonight, and we hear city officials now saying downtown Calgary might need to be shut down until the middle of next week. This comes on the heels of a day like no other for Calgary, where the office buildings and condos in the downtown were ordered evacuated. And downtown, just one area of the city impacted.
And Calgary, just one of 24 communities throughout southern Alberta that remains under siege from Mother Nature tonight. It all started with a powerful downpour on Wednesday night, and the fallout continues to cause incredible damage. RCMP now confirming 3 deaths. 2 bodies have been pulled out of the Highwood River. Police say they know where a 3rd person is, but they cannot reach that body, and 1 person remains unaccounted for.
It is really hard to believe that this is our city, and we're looking at Mission right now in the southwest, one of the first communities to be flooded. It is a shocking and heartbreaking video for those who live in that area. Their homes, their belongings now underwater. Global One was up just after the dinner hour tonight and giving us some really good fresh video to see, and again, it's unbelievable what you do see.
And it almost feels like it's from one end of the city to the other. Many streets looking more like rivers tonight. Emergency crews could be seen with a dinghy in the Earlton area just in the past half hour or so. And it is extremely dangerous there still. So it's only emergency officials who need to be in those areas right now.
That's near the Humpties at 25th and McLeod Trail. Moving to other areas now, a sea of cars. This is the RCGA area right near the Burnco plant. I'm not sure if that's a holdover area for a dealer or not. Looks like they're lined up that way, but it has been flooded over as the Bow in that part of the city spilling its banks and flooding right through.
A group of determined and patriotic citizens is fighting back tonight against the flood to protect what they love. It's a patch of park on the banks of the Bow that's also a tribute to our fallen war dead, Poppy Plaza. Here's Doug Vason with that story.
We're down here on the banks of the Bow at 10th Street Northwest. Wanted to show you a couple of things. First, well, the furious water that is rushing through this city. That tree is not supposed to be there. But then I wanted to bring your attention to Poppy Plaza itself. The number of people that are down here seeing the sights of a 1 in a 100-year flood. And then we'll direct your attention down here. It's a bunch of clay and a few 2x6s. This is an attempt by local citizens to preserve what they love, Poppy Plaza itself.
It seems to be a rather hasty job, so it's a bit of a shame. Not the berm. The berm is good, protecting it, all for that. It's a shame that so much work went into this, and now it's been flooded over immediately afterwards.
Are you surprised by the number of people just walking around down here?
Yeah, and I think it's brought the community closer together, actually. There's a lot more people out now than there was on a regular Friday.
Tony Ty has been in the hard-hit neighborhood of Mission all day.
Right around Rideau Park, Roxborough there, Tony. It looks like you're about waist deep from this angle. How much water is there?
You know, it has been rising since probably about 5 o'clock is when we first noticed that our fire hydrant, which we keep referring to, is now it's totally covered, and it was certainly visible by 6 inches or 8 inches earlier in the day. So it's going up, and we've noticed the water's creeping up Mission Road, which is just a little over to the east of us. So Mission Road is starting to get a little more water creep up. So it's not going down at all. And in fact, today, we've seen a couple of interesting situations where people have come here to rescue things. One gentleman waded down 4th Street up to his waist, went into a house, brought back a cat that had been in the house, and police were waiting, unfortunately, because you're not allowed to do that without their permission. However, we've got an interesting situation happen here. You see this over here. We have a dinghy on the road and a guy in a wetsuit. And what's happening is he and another person are going to row into a house about a half a block down from where we are. And there's a giant grand piano, a very expensive grand piano inside the house on the main floor. But there's water in the home, and they're worried that it'll become unstable and that grand piano will fall into the water. So they're going in to stabilize it, block it up, put it up a little bit, and protect it. They've had permission from the police who are on scene doing security to go in and do that. They've got evidence and proof that that's their house, and they're going inside. So it's going to be an interesting situation we'll be following over the next little while.
Now, in the middle of this terrible mess, there are countless stories of strangers helping strangers. In many cases, volunteers have swarmed into hard-hit neighborhoods ready to help.
Here's Amber Schinkel with some of the angels that arrived in the southwest communities of Earlton and Mission.
They came by the dozens, wearing gloves and rubber boots, armed with shovels, buckets, and garbage bags.
It's just fantastic. Without it, we'd be weeks and weeks of cleanup.
This is actually in between 2 condo units. They're going basement to basement, garage to garage, clearing out whatever they can, carpet, drywall, people's personal items. Volunteers working alongside city crews, repairing the damage caused by the elbow. A section of Earlton Road washed away, one home's foundation ripped apart. It even wedged someone's blue cart beneath a layer of heaved pavement. Work is also underway to restore the 25th Avenue Bridge connecting Earlton to Mission. The east bank has been badly eroded. Just across the elbow in Mission, volunteers also hitting the street. Bruce Duncan owns 2 homes swamped by floodwaters in Mission. His phone has been ringing constantly with offers of help from friends.
I'm not even calling them, they're just coming, showing up, and they're helping me, and it's overwhelming, it really is. That's how high it was. Here's the money.
Duncan's situation is a similar one to thousands across the city, but he says the outpouring of support from friends and strangers alike is proof Calgary will get through this. Amber Schinkel, Global News.
We have a full list of businesses offering services to flood victims, as well as ways you can help out. It's on our website, globalnews.ca/Calgary.
Well, this flood will long be remembered for the outpouring of emotion from volunteers who showed up unannounced and simply began helping. Tonight, our Doug Vason has the story of just one hero who actually found an army of experts.
We're here in Bowbank Crescent, one of the hardest hit areas during the flood. The Bow flows just meters to my right, but it was flowing here over the weekend, water as high as my waist. And that's when Joe's Army sprang into action and started doing their thing.
Everybody's got a big heart in this part of the world, and they want to get in there and help.
After seeing devastation like this, Joe Davis, an oil patch consultant, phoned up his buddies who have water pumps and built an army of volunteers.
Because it needs to get done, buddy. This is the most important thing I've done for the last few years, I don't get it from work no more. It's not. This is way more important than fracking wells.
If you want to come in.
Todd Greiner says he's been overwhelmed. His house is likely ruined. There is no insurance. Having people show up and help out can't be overestimated.
Had lots of hands, and it's been between our family, friends, and the volunteers that just show up. It's been amazing, truly amazing.
The Army is made up of volunteers from Calgary, Brooks, Red Deer, Grand Prairie, and Edmonton. It works for free. Davis says he's proud to join the thousands of other volunteers across the city who simply are rolling up their sleeves and getting down to work.
My heart is swollen like the Bow River.
How long will the cleanup take? Nobody knows for sure, but Joe says he's dedicated to bringing in more reinforcements and doing all he can to help flood victims. Doug Basin, Global News.
If you're just joining us, this is a live look from Global One. This is the Bonnybrook Rail Bridge. It is failing, and that is obvious from this live look. 5 train cars still on the tracks, and authorities confirming a petroleum-based product is within those cars.
You're watching Morning News on Global Calgary.
Good morning. At 7:30, we are not going to leave this story that is developing right now in the southeast part of our city. As we've been watching over top of the Bonnybrook Bridge, we're getting a great vantage shot from Global One as we look at this bridge. We have been notified from emergency officials that it has been compromised. The bridge is failing. This story has been developing since just before 4 this morning. Again, there are 5 cars on that bridge right now over the bow that are fully loaded with a petroleum-based product, possibly diesel or something similar to it. And emergency officials have cast a wide net with an evacuation order and shutting down several roadways around our city. We're looking at about a half a kilometer wide right now. They've blocked off around this situation as we continue to watch this unfold.
Scott mentioning, and you can see those cars that are sliding down towards the river now. Within those cars, fully loaded, one of the estimates upwards of 80,000 pounds contained within each one of those cars. Now, emergency officials in a briefing provided earlier were asked the question, what are your options here? And they are certainly scrambling to try and figure it out. As you can appreciate from looking at this live view, this is a fluid scene. They do have cranes on scene. We've been given no indication that the cranes have been able to even get close to try and possibly pull back or remove some of those cars.
We're going to jump over to Amber Schenkel, who has been seen throughout the morning early. Amber, what can you tell us right now? What are you hearing on the ground?
We are being told, Scott, that another press conference will be held in about 40 minutes with officials to update us here on the scene, because in addition to the police department, the fire department who is heading up this scene, we also have seen crews with Alberta Environment, with CP Rail, and with Tervita, an environmental remediation company. They are all just down the road here, further east from me, at a command post that has been set up. So they are working actively to try and figure out how to best get these train cars off the tracks without having, first of all, any safety factors, and second of all, any environmental factors. This is being treated incredibly seriously. You can tell from just the strong police presence here, the very strong fire department presence, and how large of an area they have evacuated around here. You heard Scott say that they've cleared about a mile in circumference around this scene, simply because public safety is their #1 priority here. These cars, 5 of them are still on the tracks. They have managed to pull most of the others off, but those 5 cars are all full. They are all carrying a petroleum-based product, which of course we know is flammable, and each of those cars could weigh about 80,000 pounds. So there is a lot of very dangerous materials involved here. They were talking about how to perhaps best go about getting the fuel out of those cars, and they say that even pumping it may not be an option, because that would mean having individuals, people on the ground working to do that, and they simply do not want to put people's lives at risk when there's so much that could potentially go wrong here. We also heard them talking about if they were to set up booms, how those might not even work, because the Bow River is still flowing so incredibly high, so incredibly fast, and there's so much debris in the water, so booms may not also work. We've seen a crane company on scene here as well. They are also involved in assessing how to best move these trains off of the tracks, because as we've seen from the shots on Global One and the shots provided to us by emergency crews, those tracks are bowing inwards. They're not yet touching the water, but the bridge is continuing to fail. We heard from emergency crews that it has substantially dropped since they first arrived here on scene around 3:45 this morning. So there are a lot of factors factors at play here, so much at risk, not only public safety, but also environmental safety, and things continue to change. Again, we are looking for an update from officials in about 40 minutes time, and we will bring you that information as soon as it becomes available.
Good evening. Just when we thought we were well on our way to recovery, our city was dealt another major blow. This time, an emergency of a different kind is unfolding because of a train derailment. It happened this morning on the Bonnybrook Rail Bridge. Confirmation came late this afternoon. The fast-moving Bow River is to blame for the potentially dangerous derailment. Crews remain on scene tonight, working away to get those rail cars off of the buckling bridge. The NewsHour's Bindu Suri is live on the scene tonight. And Bindu, bring us up to date on what's happening there.
Well, Linda, the latest from the city we're hearing is that the evacuation zone around this incident behind me on the bridge has been reduced to about 300 meters. It hasn't affected any residents, but a number of businesses are being affected still. Now, CP confirming, as you mentioned, that the flood did cause this damage. The fast-moving water damaged one of the columns that holds up this bridge, and CP said they had no way of knowing about the damage unless they sent a diver into the water, and they just don't do that. They look at the tracks instead, which looked aligned, and they said that the tracks met and exceeded federal regulations. So we know right now that the bridge is secure, relatively secure. We've also seen a second train move in on a parallel track that will be responsible for pumping out this hazardous petroleum material that has filled some of these train cars. Now, Doug Basin took a look at how all of this unfolded throughout the day.
At 3:30 in the morning, disaster strikes Calgary again. An eastbound train derailed 6 cars on the Bonnybrook Bridge. 5 cars are filled with toxic hydrocarbons. The bridge slowly sinking, threatening a spill into the Bow River. Evacuations are ordered a kilometer around the site. Deerfoot Trail and other major roadways gridlocked. Calgary's mayor has tough questions for CP.
Certainly, once this crisis is over, I'll be looking for a lot of answers from a lot of people. When was that bridge inspected? Why was it not inspected after Saturday? Remember, on Saturday, the Bow River was still running higher than anyone had ever seen in their lifetimes. I'll be very blunt. I'll probably get in trouble for saying this. We've seen a lot of people lose their jobs at CP over the last year. How many bridge inspectors did they fire?
Transportation Minister Rick McIver says those questions will be answered eventually.
Obviously, something happened here that will have to be investigated later. But right now, the focus is on safety and getting the safety of people, the safety of the infrastructure, and of course, getting the roads open again.
Another train is brought in, and crews tie them together to try and secure them.
We have 2 rail cars hooked up with hoses and pumps, and we're doing a third right now. As soon as that's in place, we will move the empty tank cars that are on the undamaged bridge in alignment, and then start pumping the product out of the damaged cars into the undamaged cars.
Transport Canada is in charge of the investigation as Mayor Nenshi questions why this happened in the first place.
While I'm asking lots of questions, I'll ask another one. How is it that we don't have regulatory authority over this, but it's my guys down there risking their lives to fix it?